Welcome to episode 57 of I Thought I Knew How, a podcast about knitting and life and all sorts. I'm your host, Anne Frost, and this episode was recorded on May 6th, 2021. It's season 5. Can you believe it? I know I certainly can't. What on earth was I thinking starting a podcast? I'm not even a millennial, just a Gen Xer with a love of fiber. Let's talk about that love of fiber, shall we? First of all, thank you to Paula, Adam, Susan, Mary, Ursula, Myrna, Marissa, and Allison for becoming patron producers over on patreon.com/I Thought I Knew How. Patrons keep the bills paid and they receive some benefits in return. Learn more by hopping over to patreon.com/I Thought I Knew How. Every time a new patron signs up, my phone dings and I get giddy and my family thinks I'm nuts. So an extra thank you for that. And thank you as well to SLB-SC and New Houndle or maybe it's New Hound I. It's hard to tell sometimes with certain fonts. Anyway, thank you for leaving kind reviews with your 5-star rating of the podcast over on Apple Podcasts. Rating and reviewing the show anywhere you can helps it be more visible in the search algorithms, and I very much appreciate it as it helps others find the show. All right, everyone, I've been gone for 6 weeks and I have missed you. As I'm recording this, the Online International Fiber Festival still has a few days to go, but it will be done by the time this releases. I hope you were able to check it out and had an enjoyable time. We did have a rough start. The login feature was set up in a less than ideal way. We weren't able to fix it before the festival needed to go live, but we did have a workaround, but it wasn't obvious enough. And then the workaround didn't matter because issues arose on the back end with WordPress that still make no sense to me. But the fix was that I had to reset people's passwords for them, and then they were fine. Their passwords wouldn't work. Resetting it themselves wouldn't work. I had to reset it. Still no idea why. And in the meantime, it seemed like most people were able to get into the event fine and were posting about it on social media. So it was all the more frustrating that it just seemed to be an arbitrary problem for a small number of people because computers can sometimes be evil. I had the chance to go into computer science when I was in college, and I'm so glad I didn't because I can't imagine a life spent dealing with random things like this. And bless all of you who do because you regularly save our lives. In the end, we took out the login feature. It will be back, but we will be reworking the website again so we don't have to deal with WordPress. If you did end up behind because of this, I am sorry. All I can say is that the festival is still there for you to come back to. The ongoing saga of the website does mean that the return of the first festival will be delayed until that is sorted out. One of the reasons why I wanted a login was that we had no way of knowing how many people participate in the festivals each time. By the time we took the feature out, nearly 900 people had registered. And that just floored me. I am so glad that the festival has been found by so many, and I hope that it continues to be a positive experience for people. The next one will happen again in the spring. I can't say when, as I do not know. But I promise to let you know as soon as I do. I have a lot to tell you about. I'm going to start by filling you in on 2 things, and then I'm going to have a song break, and then I'll tell you about the virtual Masters Day that happened while I was on hiatus, and then I'll do the ad break, and then I'll tell you about the super huge thing that will be announced earlier in the day before this episode comes out. But as I record it, no one has the details yet, so I'm pretending like I'm breaking the news to everyone. And then we'll have another song, and then I'll fill you in on all the other things. Okay, that's the game plan. Let's go back to those 2 things. First, I was a guest on Amy Snell's YouTube podcast called Would Knit Be Fun on this past Friday night. I don't know how it went because I'm recording this before it happened. I feel like I'm in a Christopher Nolan movie at the moment. But I have seen my preview of the questions she plans to ask, and we'll be talking about the birth of the festival and the podcast, and possibly some about Shetland travel, depending on time. If any of that sounds interesting to you, or if you'd like to see Amy answer some knitting questions and demonstrate a technique, check out the show notes for the link, or search YouTube for the Devious Knitter channel, or just do a search for Would Knit Be Fun, and it should come up. Also in my future and your past is the festival closing event with Irene Waggener. The plan is to talk about Irene's time in Morocco and the events leading up to the writing of Keepers of the Sheep. She will also be showing us how to knit a hat without a pattern using the needles and yarn that we have. If you haven't picked up a copy of Keepers of the Sheep yet, I don't know what else I can say. I really can't encourage you enough to do so. It's just a great book. If all goes well, the event will have been recorded and should be available by now on the I Thought I Knew How YouTube account or on the Morocco itinerary at oifiberfestival.com. The event is also marking the beginning of our Hat Not Hate knit along. This knit along is open for listeners worldwide. In the US, knit blue hats to donate to Hat Not Hate. If you want to learn more about this cause, listen to episode 56 when I interviewed the organization founder, Shira Blumenthal. You can mail them in yourself, or many yarn stores and such are functioning as drop-off points, so check with yours. Listeners outside of the US, you are welcome to knit blue hats and send them into Hat Not Hate too. Or you can knit hats for any local charity near you who can use them. As you finish hats, post photos to Instagram using the hashtags #HatNotHate or the charity you'll be donating to if you're overseas. And I thought I knew how, so I'm sure to see it. If you don't see me liking your posts, please message me. I found out recently that private accounts won't show up in hashtag searches unless you're following the account. So I will like every post I see. And if I'm missing you, poke me and I'll make sure I'm following you. If you aren't on Instagram, you can post your hats in the MeWe or Facebook groups. Each hat is an entry, so you can post them one at a time or you can post them all at once. I will keep track. Like if you post 5 in a picture, I will keep track of that. A US-based participant will win $50 of natural fiber Lion brand yarn sent to their doorstep. An international participant will win a PDF copy of Top 24 Morehouse Tops to Cover Young and Old, which is a fantastic digital pattern book of the top 24 hat patterns from Morehouse Farm. The time to enter ends on May 31st, 2021. I'll assume you are US-based unless you tell me otherwise. So international listeners, please be sure you tell me if I don't already know. If you've been in an online knit night from beyond the US, I know you're overseas. Otherwise, make sure I know. To help you out with the knit along, Knit New Haven is offering a hat amount of blue yarn for free to those who visit the shop or who cover postage. Feel free to just swing by the store or reach out to Linda through her website, knitnewhaven.com. This offer is good while supplies last. Also, Morehouse Merino is offering 10% off their solid colored 3-strand worsted yarns with free shipping within the US or a $12 flat rate international shipping. If you slip some non-blue yarn into your cart for another project, I will not tell anyone. Enter the coupon code NEWHOW, as in KNEWHOW, in the first screen of the checkout. And then when you get to the shipping screen, be sure to manually change the shipping option to free shipping or the $12 international. Thank you to both Morehouse and Knit New Haven for making it a little easier for people to join in on this knit along for the very worthy Hat Not Hate program. Okay, it is time for a song. This is a sad song, but it is also a beautiful song. This is Deeper by Robbie Kavanaugh.
You tear me open like a violent blade, and I love it dearly, like I love these flames surrounding me. If I believed in saviors, then I'd let you try. But I'm lay so quiet. You should be by my side, absorbing me. I'll be a tidal wave, I'll be a silent place if we aren't celebrating becoming alive. I'll be your midnight voice. You'll be my only choice. There's an addiction here that I'll struggle to hide. I'm doing as you told me, with an open mouth, and I taste you slowly. If I could scream or shout, I'd beckon you. I have a fear so tender, and a hand so strong. I will scratch you open and leave a scar so long you have no choice but to stay, if that's what it takes. I'll be your tidal wave. I'll be your silent place if we aren't celebrating becoming alive. I'll be your midnight voice. You'll be my only choice. There's an addiction here that I'll struggle to hide. Is this a warning or goodbye? Or is that your desperation? Are you alone? I am getting weaker as this house burns to the ground. Or is that imagination? Are you alone? You push me deeper. You should be by my side.
Let's talk about Virtual Masters Day. Every year, the Knitting Guild Association has an in-person Masters Day, but with everything going on, of course, it was moved online, which was great because there was no way I could have fit the live event into my schedule this year. Otherwise, that just would not have happened. There were a handful of pre-recorded features, but most of them were live. They covered everything about the logistics of the program. And they also included taking time to critique swatches so you know exactly the sorts of things that they are looking for. I'm not going to get into all of it because I think some of it is the type of minutia that only really applies if you're actually in the program. But I do want to tell you about a few takeaways from the event. First, none of the current evaluators who were involved in the event has had anyone pass level 1 without having to reknit something. They said to just assume that having to resubmit something is part of the process. About half of the people have to submit things a second time, but none of them have had anyone have to resubmit something a third time. So this was very helpful in helping me to set realistic expectations. They also shared their own experiences of getting their level back and having to go through the critique. So they acknowledge that it can be a blow to the ego, especially with the amount of work that goes into preparing your submission, but assured everyone that the criticism was for improvement and not harassment. We'll see how I feel about that when I finally get to that point, but for now, as I said, it helped me to get my expectations right. Another thing I appreciated hearing was that if you make a mistake consistently across your swatches, they won't make you reknit all the swatches. They will just have you reknit 1 or 2 to prove that you conquered that error. That alone was incredibly freeing It was actually one of my paranoia-inducing fears about progressing. Also, they took the time to critique some swatches for us all. This was probably the most helpful takeaway. I know I have mentioned before that I have contacted them about a swatch before, and they said they don't expect our knitting to look like it came from a knitting machine. But I still didn't know exactly how perfect the stitches needed to be acceptable. Well, suffice it to say, I worked on my stockinette to the point that it looks better than the swatches they said were fine. So now I'm all cocky about it, and I'm sure that won't come back to bite me in the butt at all. There were a few things they said that I made note of to go in and change before I send the level in. One having to do with how I explained how to block, and it's really just like a wording issue. And the other related to how I bind off the very final stitch. Sadly, that last one is going to mean I will be reknitting the first 3 swatches. I have always been the person who, when you are left with the last bind off loop, you just draw it long and then snip the loop and pull the end out of the loop and you're done. They want you to snip the yarn, put it through that final loop and pull your needle out. And then that is the end. And that gives you the same number of bind off stitches as you have cast on stitches. And they do look for that on all of the swatches. Yes, it's just a matter of unweaving the end and, doing that little fix. But once I have unwoven that, the end's already been snipped. I'm not going to be able to get it woven back in again properly. So I'm suddenly very grateful that I have only finished 3 swatches. It's not the end of the world to have to redo those swatches. 2 of them are ribbing followed by either garter or stockinette. And I think I may have also blocked those a little too aggressively based on what I was seeing. And so I think it's just going to be okay to just redo those anyway. They hosted the event in a way that all the sessions were recorded and I can go back to them now and watch them for 6 months, which is very appreciated because at one point in each day, they would run 3 classes simultaneously, 1 for each level of the program. And I'd really love to see what went on in the other levels. All in all, it was a very helpful event. Now I just need the time. And also, despite being committed to seeing at least level 1 through, I would still recommend that unless you are super duper in love with paperwork and documenting research, that you look into the Professional Knitter's Certificate instead of the Master Hand Knitter program. It's the paperwork still that ultimately annoys me enough to keep me from pulling out the binder and getting to work. Knit New Haven has recently had a delivery of elegant buttons from Textile Garden, and 52 Weeks of Shawls is in their shop, so this is a great time to do some online shopping as you take Linda up on her offer of free yarn for the Hat Not Hate Knit Along. Also, we have been informed that the I-91 Shop Hop will be happening this summer. Very happy to hear that. It will be August 10th through the 21st, so there is extra time to complete it, and we can all still be socially distanced if we need to be at that point. Knit New Haven is the perfect store to start or end your route with, and it's convenient to New York City. I imagine some pretty nice road tripping possibilities for the hop and New York toward the end of the summer. The Morehouse Merino Flock Group is working on a project with Irene Waggener this month, knitting the High Atlas leg warmers, or you can learn how to alter the pattern to knit it as a cowl. It's already a very flexible pattern. It's available in Keepers of the Sheep, and rather than spelling out the pattern, you're provided with pattern charts for the design and guidance on the number of stitches to use. If that sounds intimidating, that's why we have the Morehouse Merino Flock Group. Erin and other flock members are there to provide the help and suggestions needed to get you from cast on to bind off. A month's membership is $45, which is like paying for an online class that will spend 30 days helping you along rather than 3 hours. Totally worth it. I'm getting ready for another trip, and as I'm packing, I'm reminded just how much I love my woolen dresses. 2 dresses and a pair of jeans and a shirt, and that's all of the clothes I'm packing for 12 days of travel. I'll bring a jacket and other necessities, but the whole kit and caboodle will fit easily in a carry-on, which means I will have plenty of room to bring yarn home. Wool And has so many more styles than when I did the 100-day dress challenge last summer, including short sleeves and long sleeve dresses. And they now have t-shirts in stock and ready to ship. I'm wearing wool all summer long again. I have 2 of the Maggie dresses coming at the end of June, just in time for short sleeve weather. Have a look using the link in the show notes or visit I Thought I Knew How and click the Be a Booster link to find Wool Ann's link there. Okay, it's time for the big thing. As I said, some of you likely know about this already because the announcement is coming Monday during the day, but I'm not going to let that stop me from feeling like you are all hearing about this for the first time. I am partnering with Island Vista, a Shetland-based tour company, to host 2 tours in Shetland in August. They will run back-to-back, with the first tour focusing on Fair Isle knitting and the second on Shetland lace knitting. The tours are called Makkin Our Way Through Shetland, Makkin, of course, being the Shetland dialect word for knitting. Fair Isle Week will run August 8th through the 15th, and Lace Week will run the 15th through the 22nd. The tours include nearly everything once you get to Shetland. Your transfers to and from the airport, 7 nights at a lovely guest house with a private bathroom, all your breakfasts, all but 1 dinner and 1 lunch. 1 dinner we left open because we will be eating at some really amazing restaurants. The food in Shetland is spectacular, and we wanted to give you the chance to decide to go back to your favorite if you'd like. And the 1 lunch isn't covered, but we will be conveniently located for you to decide what you want to eat that day. And so we wanted to give you, a day when you can pick, and we're not picking for you. We will have a professional tour guide with us to handle everything, present information, answer our questions. All of our admission to various sites and class costs will all be covered as well. During Fair Isle Week, we will have classes with Jeanette Budge on Fair Isle yokes, Barbara Shane about steeking your knitting, and a special project to work on at Uredale Farm while we listen to Vivica Velopulai's talk on Shetland dialect knitting terminology. Hazel Tyndall will meet with us to talk about production knitting from her youth and her mother's time, and you will get to visit Wilma Malcolmson's workshop and learn about color blending from her. There will be farm tours of Garthcroft Bressa and Uredale Farm, a visit to the most complete Iron Age tower in Scotland, visits to 4 museums, an evening with the former MRI Mackers knitting group, and more. And that's not even all the things. As we planned the trip, I made it clear that for many people, making the trip to Shetland was a trip of a lifetime type experience. And I wanted to make sure that we saw as much as possible and learned as much as possible. There is downtime, but we are going to enjoy ourselves while we are there. Lace Week will have a full day lesson with Ann Yunson and Kathleen Anderson, expert lace knitting sisters. You probably already know Ann Yunson as the woman who knit the fence. We will also meet and learn from Elizabeth Johnson, who is known for her spinning skill as well as her lace knitting. There will be a workshop with Cecil Tate to whittle our own shawl pins for our lace creations. And we will visit Uredale Farm to work on a lace project while we have the dialect talk from Vivica. This is one of the few places of overlap between the 2 weeks. The itineraries have been created so that if you want to go on both trips, you will have very little overlap between the 2. We will be offering different knitting and historical sites than the first week. Our museums will mostly be different, or in one case, when we visit the same one, it will be to focus on a different aspect of the collection and receive a different tour with the representative of the museum. If you would like to compare the itineraries yourself, visit ithoughtIknewhow.com/Shetland for the general overview, and at the bottom of the page, you'll find a link to the tours on the Island Vista website with access to the itineraries. The cost of each week is £2,250 per person. If you join us for both weeks, there is a £200 discount off the total of the 2 weeks, and a deposit of £100 is due when you register, and the remainder is due 2 weeks before the tour starts. You are responsible for getting yourself to Shetland, though we are happy to advise along the way on how to make that happen. This is the first time we are running this tour, obviously, so we are keeping it small. There are 7 spaces for Fair Isle Week and 6 for Lace Week, though if you are coming with a partner or a friend and are willing to share a room, we can fit in a few more people. The trip is also an incredible bargain at this price. We were looking at comparable tours, and they were roughly 40% more with the same teachers. And let's just say when you work with a locally based tour company, you know about more and better things to do. We are confident that the UK will be open to tourism by August, if not completely, then at least to countries whose COVID situation is similar to the UK's. However, if the country is shut down, we will offer an alternative date in the spring of 2022. I am so excited about this. The address again is ithoughtIknewhow.com/Shetland to get the general information, and then follow the link at the bottom of the page to get to the Island Vista site for all the specifics and to reserve your spot. Again, so excited. When Jolene sent me the finalized itineraries, I was happy clapping and cheering. We are going to have a blast. Let's have another song to celebrate. This is The Best Day by Zach Nelson, and it is the best day. Let's do a bit of dancing together with this one. A gajillion things before I go. Shetland Woolweek is virtual this year. I think I already shared that, but since the last episode, the year's hat pattern came out. It's called De Crofter's Kep, and again, there are 4 official colorways. However, if you look on Wilma Malcolmson's social media, you'll see recommended colorways for Laxdale and Aister Oo as well. Both are relatively new wool companies in Shetland. I have one in Uradale yarns on the needles, yarn for the Jameson and Smith colorway on the way, and an order from Shetland Handspun coming too. I think that will be plenty. I was going through my closet the other day and seeing just how many Fair Isle hats I've knit since I knit the Harriet's hat a couple of years ago. And eventually you just have to say when, So I'm going to knit 3 more and then say when for a bit. June 12th and 19th, I will be co-teaching an online class with Viveka Villapulai of Uradale Yarns. In the first class, we will cast on their fairy cowl and talk about knitting in the round and making neat seed stitch. We should also tackle a color change before the class ends. Then, as we work on the border of the cowl, Viveka will deliver her talk on Shetland dialect knitting words. On the 19th, we will have our second session, and we will cover the basics of Fair Isle, holding your yarn, maintaining proper tension, and jogless rounds. Though, just between you and I don't actually worry about jogs in Fair Isle. In a sweater, you hide them under the arm line, so no one really sees them. But I know some people really hate seeing the jogs, so we'll talk about how to minimize it. Once we're working, Viveka will talk about Shetland sheep and their organic farming practices at Uradale Farm. Your spot in both classes and the pattern is 25 pounds, and you can buy your yarn locally. You need a DK. I really recommend that you get yourself a good grippy wool, like a Shetland or a Norwegian wool to knit this pattern in, especially if you are new to Fair Isle. Or for 45 pounds plus the shipping, you can get your ticket plus the kit in their lovely Uradale yarns. I recommend you go for the kit. I love Uradale yarns. They have lovely rich colors with a sleek feel, and it gets softer the more you wear it. As I record this, we only have a few spaces left, so look for the link in the show notes and save your space. This may well be sold out by the time this goes to air, but Viveka and I have already decided to run it again if everything works well on the tech side of things, so I will keep you informed. July 21st through the 25th, I will be presenting a lecture called Travel with a Side of Knitting as part of the Fiber World Online Festival. I cover why you should travel for fiber crafting experiences, how to pack when you're traveling for knitting, as well as how to find a fiber-related travel experience that works well for you, and how to create your own. I also throw in 3 general tips that should be helpful for traveling in general, especially for my fellow Americans, especially if you are headed overseas. So look for that. I will put a link to the festival in the show notes. August, we have the 2 tours, Makkin our way through Shetland, ithoughtIknewhow.com/Shetland. Come and join us. I'm really silly with joy about these tours. In September, I will be in Shetland for Virtual Woolweek from September 25th to October 2nd. I have some things in the works for that. One is pretty big and I'm pretty thrilled about it, but contracts haven't been signed yet, so I will keep you posted. I'm sorry. I had intended to spill this one, but I am now feeling like I need to sit on it until it's all settled. Finally, if all goes to plan, I will be sitting in a hotel in Lima, Peru when this episode goes live on Monday evening. We will be there for a very special project I'm working on. And while I am there, I will be interviewing Dana Blair of Pachinku Fiber, a natural dyeing company in the Sacred Valley, which should be our next episode. While I'm away, I will be posting occasional travel logs on the Patreon feed for patrons of any level. So if you'd like to see those, hop over to patreon.com/ithoughtIknewhow and sign up. I cannot commit to doing daily travel logs like I did on the Shetland trip last year, because this trip is leaning heavily toward the work side of things, but I will do as many as I can. Until next time, thank you for listening and knitting with me for a bit. If you'd like to support the show, please visit patreon.com/ithoughtIknewhow to make a monthly pledge. You may also consider making a purchase from one of our sponsors by visiting the website ithoughtIknewhow.com and clicking the link at the top that says Be a Booster. While you are on the site, you can also find the show notes for each episode. Thank you ever so much to my patrons, to Knit New Haven, and to Morehouse Farm for sponsoring the podcast. Find me on my social media accounts as I Thought I Knew How, except on Twitter where it's just Thought I Knew How. The groups on various platforms are all called I Thought I Knew How Podcast. Until next time, may you be blessed with stitches that never drop, yarn without joins, and plenty of time to knit.